we'll bring the lights down a little bit. And, there's a pitcher of water here. This looks a little crowded. Y'all be okay with this? Excuse me. Let me just get by. Yeah. Thank you. And we have
You want to say a few words about the bookstore?
kind of in a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead and speak to them.
So I want to begin by thanking you all for coming out. Apparently, there's going to be a mega storm, and so you guys are mega awesome for coming out. So thank you, thank you. I'm excited to be reading with two other Bay Area poets, and I really want to thank Eric, the owner of Bird and Beckett. He's such an amazing bookstore owner, and I know if many of you've come here or have listened to jazz here, it's just such an amazing institution. We're so lucky to have it here. So thank you.
Well, I'll just say that I really appreciate being in this city with City College, for one thing, with a lot of wonderful people. I don't know who's connected with who, San Francisco State, all this stuff. This is a great place to have a bookstore. So it's worked out real well so far. And today will just be like the jewel in the crown. So y'all have a good time. I'm still fiddling a little bit. I had to swap out a camera, so I think we're okay. So you guys let me know if that level sounds good to you, volume-wise.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah, we're going to try it again. So the level sounds fine. Great. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so without further ado, landscapes, lineage, and love during a time of upheaval. And really, what I'm being reminded of over and over again is that poetry is something that connects us all. And I love what it does. I went to a manga exhibit at the De Young yesterday for my husband's 47th birthday. And I was just so impressed by the way that manga deals a lot with love, lineage, and landscape, and how it really invites us to see our own lives, not in a linear way, but really invites us to see it in a sort of, in a way in which we can travel back in time, forward in time, and we're always accompanied by many different spirits. And so we all come out of a tradition, a lineage. And so I just wanted to say a few things about that. Coming up, there's going to be a new book called Unruly Witness about June Jordan's legacy, and that's out now with Heyday Books, which I feel like I wouldn't be a poet without her. And there'll be a special reading for the Howard Zinn Book Fair at the Mission campus, City College Mission campus on December 7th. So hopefully we'll see some of you there for that. And speaking of that, we just have a few announcements before we start. I wanted to bring up John Isles, who is part of the creative writing, poetry, and creative writing group at City College. And he's just going to mention a few things about our classes, because hopefully some of you want to take classes or know people who want to take classes. Yeah, come on up, John.
No, I just wanted, since we're talking about circles, I just wanted to make sure we were reminding of the circle of Bird and Beckett to City College. And of course, Xochi is one of our poetry instructors at City College. And so I just wanted to get it out there for people who might be interested that we have a whole lineup of creative writing classes and a great community at City College. Xochi will be teaching poetry in the spring. We have 2 fiction classes and a nonfiction class. We also have a magazine class, Forum Literary Magazine. There's actually a copy of it up front, so if you want to check it out. So it's a student-produced magazine. It's basically just project-based. The students kind of spend the whole semester putting it together. And Shantae, who's here, is going to be one of the teachers working on that. And we also have a visiting writers series. So we recently had Ariana Benson reading from Black Pastoral. So it was an amazing reading. And we have Kim Stanley Robinson in like the first week of December coming. So just kind of letting you know that we're here and part of the community. And, we're welcome you to come over to City College. Thanks. All right.
Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce our first reader of the evening, and that's Carolyn M. Marr. Carolyn M. Marr is the great granddaughter of a railroad laborer and the author of Water Guest. It was selected for the Wisconsin Poetry Award in 2024. She is also the author of Special Education that came out with Texas Review Press in 2019, and that actually won the X.J. Kennedy Prize. Carrie is a graduate of the MFA program for the writers at Warren Wilson College and a member of Rabble Collective and serves on the board of Friends of Writers. She's a longtime ninth grade health educator in her hometown of San Francisco and lives in Oakland, California. She's been granted residencies at Hedgebrook, Ragdale, and Story Knife, among others. And you can find her online at carriemarr.com. Please join me in welcoming Carrie Marr.
Thanks so much for being here, y'all. Can you hear me okay? Great. In our teaching at the school I teach at, we often begin with land acknowledgements, and it's Native American Heritage Month. And so I thought I'd start with a poem that acknowledges the indigenous people. People there are the Washoe tribe of Nevada and California. Burials. Unrest affects the living. Melba tells me story after story. There once was a Chinatown in Dayton, Nevada. It ended like so much else in this wild and wilder West. Bodies, a pit, a thundering of hooves. Later, a motel, and when a cabinet was built, into the basement, skulls stacked like rocks behind foundation walls, grinning ghosts awaiting their shining moment. We believe there's danger in living on top of burials. Later, a woman living there committed suicide. Like every Chinatown, the motel burned down. The ghosts won out their own incensed offering. Elsewhere, the power company dug in to set a line and found, instead, a body. Sent off, forensics, determination, Washoe. They shipped him to her at the museum. But I just thought, I had this feeling. She looked it up, what we do when we do it our way. Buried him with red silk, oranges, faced him to the east. Thanks. So a lot of these poems are about the Lake Tahoe area. And in the spirit of land acknowledgements, also you can, acknowledging the land we're on is really important, but it's also a great time of year to, pay shumi or pay land back donations to the Ramaytush Ohlone or other tribes, and I give royalties from my book sales to the Washoe because they were so helpful to me in the creation of this manuscript. So Lake Tahoe is one big strand in the book, and another is the railroad laborers who built the Central Pacific. Stage 2, physical incapacitation. When the waters rose, the forest stayed. What else can a forest do but stand? There would be no fire inside the lake. There would be no ground to tumble down, just water rising, cold and blue, the floods of the next era. Sometimes the change comes over you like that all at once, a drowning. Hundreds of coolies were tied together and weighed down with rocks. Straw hats removed, queues tangled, thrown in to save the cost of their pay. The historians say this is unlikely, given the railroad payrolls showing each Chinese contractor paid, given how little Chinese labor cost, given the distance from the Truckee Railroad camp to the lake, given every other history I know, chains, bodies of water, ghosts. Sometimes a person isn't a person at all, but a weight to be freighted onto someone else's shoulder. Why not the silent lake? Why not a flood of furious bodies fighting toward the coldest surface? The forest stayed and drowned. When Xochi shared the sort of theme of tonight and thinking about the current moment, I thought about this poem. Property. He said I was a baby because I cried over the loss of my property. Lum May, merchant, recounting his encounter with Tacoma Mayor Weisbach after that same mayor led a mob to burn down what remained of Tacoma's Chinatown in 1885. What white man hasn't cried about what he thinks belongs to him? I have seen them cry and put fists through walls for the loss of a car, or for being told to sit back down, please, in their assigned seat. I learned to fear men by hearing the stories about how they would cry after they hit you, say forgiveness, and make it your fault. White men love to cry for how hard they miss the good old days, their father's unsolvable love. Cry into their beers, their whiskeys, see also an Irish wake. Even my grandfather, I saw him cry once, recounting the way other men cried for their mothers as the ship went down. I am not a heartless bitch. I, too, am crying, writing white-tiered words onto blue-white page. But property, oh property, what does a white man love more than his manicured house? Another powerful man crying, enraged at his name being dragged through mud that he made of spittle and beer. What tears I couldn't watch, made of the lies we tell, the secret selves we baby and coddle, refusing to let them grow up. America, you love the pornography of other people's pain. Floods, fires, bullets, you think in the end they probably got what was coming to them. With a dry and pitying eye, white men tell the most lies. If my grandfather knew we would sell the house after he died, he would have cried, surely. Each leaf of ivy climb carefully tended, carefully loved. Each book in its rightful place. My beloved, not rightfully country, what are you but one long cry of a white man claiming mine? The cry of a man, soft hands, played too rough, coming inside you, relieved, terrified at what it is he's just done. Baby, poor baby. Another big thread in the book was translation and the loss of language. Including the title of the book, which I learned from a book about the driving out of Chinese during the xenophobic exclusion era. And my family speaks Cantonese. My father, who's here, speaks Cantonese pretty fluently. And I spoke it as a child, but I don't speak it fluently at all and barely speak it anymore. And I'm not literate in it. So there's a lot of poems about that. Guest. First translation. Do I know your shape, writing in this, my language, my not language, the not knowing, the looking up, What is the sign? Again, dictionary, internet, verify, my memory, my guide. Words I have never known. And then the sound. For this, even Google has no answers. Because our language is and is not a written language. Because the computer's voice marbling 水课 in a dipping double fall to rise isn't speaking our language, but its bigger, steadier, colonizer cousin. Our language less shush and more bark. Our language breaks more rules. I know shui is really soy. Know the Valley Girl lilt of tone 2 mid-rising in my mouth, like I know I would have written it soy for my mother to read aloud as I practiced my writing tests, how it sounded in my pencil, swishing water's shape onto the page. But I have no sound for k. Could be kai, like a hammer falling, or kyun, like a village alone, or gai, like a street with light shifting through it. Guest, second translation. Months later, I will ride down the wide boulevards of my city with 2 strangers and a driver the age of my father, same receding black hair, but lacking the milk-tall stance and orthodontia smile of the American-born, thus reminding me more of the generation before. The strangers don't speak, staring at their phones, as is the custom. I stare at his name, turning its tone in my closed mouth. It could be Chi or even Chi, but who would name their child Saul, really? I won't speak until the strangers both leave the car, mouth careful. My father grew up in Chinatown, and how long have you lived here, Chi? Deciding to go for tone 1, like an optimistic song on my tongue, and he asks me, do I speak Guangdonghua? And I say Mo Gam To, and he says he thinks it's better living in the Richmond than crowded Chinatown. And yes, the Richmond is a lot like the Sunset, where I grew up, which is when it occurs. Maybe he can answer. So at the next red light, I pull up my ghost words and say, I know, sorry, but I don't know this second one. Can you help me? And he says, oh yes. His silver-edged bridge flashing delight at the shore of his lip. That's soy hak. Means someone who travels back and forth like a merchant or an importer-exporter, says it a few times for me to practice in my wobbly hak, hak, hak accent until I get it right. Hak. I say it used to mean the people who carried your letters home when no one could leave or come here. And he says, sure, it's still a lot like that. They still use it for those who go back and forth between here and there, carrying what anyone needs. I'll close with a little bit of historical information. 2 more poems, and one of the epigraphs of the book. The precise number of Chinese who worked on the railroad from 1864 to 1869 is not clear. Records are incomplete and inexact. Historians estimate that at any one time, as many as 10,000 to 15,000 Chinese were working on constructing the railroad. Most Chinese probably did not work for the entire duration of construction, and others would take their place, particularly because the work was so difficult and dangerous. Stanford University, Chinese Railroad Workers in North America Project. And I will just add to that with all of the very meticulous records that the railroads kept about how much lumber and how much rice and how much tea they were buying, there were extensive records of how many brushes and how much ink and how many papers. But to this day, historians have not been able to find any primary source writing either here or back in China from a railroad worker from that time. Catalog of writings left by Chinese railroad laborers of the CPRR. very hot. The water, a guest inside of us, salty, sweet, and swimming, how water does, and you, a guest in your own house, a watery word, a guest on the tongue, a gust of air across wet lips, a voice echoing back and back, though nothing's left to prove it, no papers, no shred of evidence, not one letter, not one mark upon the page, no papers, your papers, for a period of 3 long years, an ocean away from where you are not a guest. Where are you from? People ask me, ask people who look like me, look like anything but the blankness of a page. Let me turn then to the color of water into ink ground against a stone, the words carried back by each water guest, each bringer of news and love and tribulation. Here are the words that belong to you. Here are the words that belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. That was beautiful. Our second reader is Camille Roy, and she is a writer of fiction, poetry, and plays. Her fiction collection, Honey Mine, was published by Nightboat Books in 2021. And some of her previous works include Sherwood Forest, a book of poetry and prose from Future Poem, and Cheap Speech, a play from Leroy Chapbooks, as well as Swarm, 2 novellas from Black Star series. She co-edited Biting the Error, Writers Explore Narrative, a book of essays by writers on their own experimental prose practices, published by Coach House Books. Earlier books include Rosy Medallions and Cold Heaven, and her recent work has appeared in Beast Number 9. Please join me in welcoming Camille Roy.
Just a little higher for you. That's always a good idea.
But I picked them up on the way here, so I did good. Thank you for the beautiful reading. That was really nice. I'm going to read from a manuscript I've just finished, which is called A Death on Paper. It is about my partner's diagnosis, illness, and death, and then subsequent sort of periods of life unfolding. She died about 8 years ago. So I'm going to read you a section from the beginning and then towards the end. It starts with this quote by a San Francisco poet named George Albone. We stripped our bearings, but shine anyway, toward speech, toward care. 2 months ago, after many complaints of abdominal pain, you went in for an ultrasound. They found nothing of concern. The pain persisted, so today you went in again. This time, after examining you for a moment, the nurse stood up. She left the room. Perhaps there was a consult, but out of earshot. The nurse brought in someone else, a doctor. They said your doctor would call you. She did call, just after you got home. As I overheard the conversation, I felt a hot little fear getting lodged in my gut. It turned on as if by a switch, and I knew I was stuck with it for a while. Other people's surgeries were moved around. Yours could not wait a week. Urgency had gripped the medical system, and suddenly every day was critical. We met the surgeon. He was smaller than I expected, and his skin more tender. He brought us into his office and showed us an X-ray of the mass in your uterus. Enormous. It looked like an asteroid had ended up there. I kept staring at the surgeon's steeply slumped shoulders, which descended into finely formed hands. They were so delicate, those hands. I thought they had a magical shine. We had been assured he was a genius. My febrile mind skittered around. I began to wonder if our surgeon was like the wizard in Fantasia, in the section based on The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Our son Reese and I had spent many hours watching it when he was about 5. After apprentice Mickey Mouse is left alone with his chores, he tries out wizard powers and the broom and bucket go crazy, making a terrible, noisy, exciting mess. Finally, the huge and forbidding wizard appears to put everything right. I'm crushed to remember that the slumped shoulders did not belong to the wizard at all, but to Mickey Mouse. The surgeon had moved on to pointing at other things, small, floaty things that were in the lungs. They looked like paper scraps. These won't be removed by surgery, he said. Why won't you remove them? I wanted to cry out. He said he would remove the uterine mass and then chemo would shrink the floaty things. He estimated that this was a 4-hour or so operation, and there could be a lot of blood loss. My imagination flashed an image of you dying on the table in a pool of blood loss, followed by a sequence of calls to your siblings to tell them about it. Back at home, you called me over to see the oriole in the garden. It was flying from tree to tree, starting with the lemon tree, then Japanese maple, the plum. The bird was black and yellow, a honey yet bright yellow with black. It will breed here, then migrate to Mexico. I'm happy it managed to survive, you said. The next day, your spirits were improved. You said, I just want the tumor out. The operation took place after hours, so that most of the surgical wing was dark and the waiting room was chilly. There were rows of chairs, all empty except for the one our old friend Nais had taken. She glanced up when I came in. There's a slight upward tilt to her dark eyes, and they usually carry a flash of warmth, but her gaze was vacant. I remember when she had a riverish cascade of thick black hair. It's gray now, but still thick. She hunched back into herself, and I curled up on a chair. When it was over, I could visit, the nurses said, but Nais had to go home. Your bed was under a spotlight, and at the edges of the room, our machine companions were gleaming in the dark. You were blazing with good humor. Already I'm doing better than the doctors expected, you said. I have been telling myself that the thingies they saw in the lungs might not be tumors, or if they are, they could blow up and get huge any day now. I'm oscillating between denial and catastrophe. You were dismissive of my imaginations. I have to deal with my situation, you said. I can't fantasize. It's something different. I was probably chattering too much. I suppose the task right now is just to accept this fear and pain in my life as if it's not a mistake. The alternative is to live in terror and distraction. I read the pathology report. The tumor weighed 2 pounds and was 5 inches in diameter. It hadn't invaded the ovaries or fallopian tubes, but it grew so much it got into the intestine and bladder. There was other stuff I didn't understand. Markers, perhaps. It was necrotic. Today, or yesterday, the surgeon came by. He used the phrase, the lung tumors. He said it wasn't a bad thing that they are large because it means that when they give you chemo, they can see if it is effective. If the cancer cells are all microscopic, they can't do this. So that's it. The thingies are tumors. I felt incredulous and despairing. You went to sleep. When you are released from the hospital, friends come over to welcome you home. You are cheerful and bright-eyed. In fact, your eyes are the same as they were the day we met, dark blue with patches of an even darker color and little bits of amber. Dinner is cups of soup, cobs of corn, scattered randomly across the table, followed by 4 pints of ice cream. I got grabbed a couple of times by people expressing concern about how I was doing. You didn't eat anything. Everybody stayed too long. Afterwards, you told me, I get alienated by your anxiety. Yes, I feel it too, thrumming. Dr. Lee, the oncologist, was solemn. I had the impression he was being gentle with us. He said your cancer is chemo-resistant. It only works at all for 40 to 50% of patients. The news swept through me. I called my friend Terry. She has a fearless quality that is sturdy and uncompromising. She told me it is not time to let go of hope. Maybe those lung tumors won't grow for years. Maybe the chemo will work. I raised the enormity, the catastrophe. I told her that you and I have been together since I was 22. This is the mountain I cannot see around. Terry wasn't dismayed, although she was compassionate. She said, if you do lose Angie, you will be fine. She pronounced the word fine emphatically. Fine. She said that whatever stories I have in my head about my lonesome fate or whatever, those are wrong. Take it out and push, or cut it out like paper. Could we sing it out? I wish I could escape into song. There will be a crisp surgery, then the pulling begins, but we are already so tired. I've heard that the end shines through its light, and there's a lighthouse out there where the spirits draw together. Okay, this is a year later, and it's towards the end. It's the night of July 1st. We made it a year. You are in the hospital bed in the dining room. For several hours, you've had your palms plastered to your skull and forehead. You lie with your elbows poking up. I am in the next room, watching you on a baby monitor. The light reflects in your slit of an eye. It gleams. When I call out a question, you nod. Then when I ask if you need anything, there is no response. It's a ghostly little image, grainy, black and white, shot in the dark. My companion, my dying lover. The future is a mental cramp. I can't even hold in my mind all that is at stake. Tonight I had the intense frustration of yearning for your companionship, your little digs, your wry humor. Once, as we left the nude beach, you threw a comment over your shoulder at the man who promenaded in front of our spot. The thing about nude beaches is how many times you got to walk back and forth. We've seen you enough times. I thought, it is stopping now, our lived relationship. You are still here, but you are slipping away. When will the future stop being a hostile force? I talked to one of your sisters on the phone today. A few years ago, her husband almost died, and I pitied her so much. But now that harsh and lonely prospect is mine. I told her that you've been slipping away. As you've been slipping away, I've become aware of our love as a sort of sun beating down across all our days. For decades, I've lived under its warmth. Your sister understood. When my husband was at the edge of death, I suddenly realized how much I love this person. It's what we do, what humans do. The potential for pain is so great. We don't see how deep our love is, how much we can lose. What I am losing includes a chunk of my own humanity, but it will regenerate like an octopus tentacle. Your sister told me this story about your last text. It was garbled and misspelled, but it contained something about it would happen tomorrow. So she called, and you explained that you were dead. This was back when you were telling Reese and me that you were already dead. It was soon after your mother died. Your sister just asked questions. How are Megan and Reese dealing with this? Oh, I'm helping them, you said. You know, I was a counselor. Have you seen Mom? No, but I'm working on it. We have these bodies. We drag them around. They exist beside and through us. But what do they mean, really? All day you were quiet and not eating. In the evening, I went on a walk. It felt like I had gone out for a walk with my despair. It lightened because it does that, because walking has that effect. As I walked up the hill, I talked to you silently, the you who is already gone, the intact one, sharing observations about the evening light, the breeze, the new construction I passed on the way. At the top, I stopped in front of a small house with an awning striped in the colors of the French flag. The house is set back behind a large garden. I always want to stop here, and you humor me. There are gravel paths, flower beds tucked behind low curving hedges, and a formal fountain. It's guarded by a massive wrought iron fence. A Cecile Brunner rose presses against it, and the showers of small pink roses poke through the iron bars. I picked one. In the little park across the street, I found blackberries. I brought back a blackberry, juicy and sweet. I rubbed it across your teeth, and that seemed to wake you. I put the rose on your pillow. It had a faint honey smell. Then you ate half a banana and drank milk. Reese lay down next to you on a row of chairs. He said, "I love you, Mom." Then he fell asleep. I was on the other side, cuddled up next to you on another row of chairs. You ran your hand up and down my arm. You murmured something about animal spirits. I said, "Yes, I have always loved your animal spirits. You have such animal spirits." You said, "She is roused by her animal spirits. She has strong animal spirits." You talked about yourself as she, as if you are beginning to separate from yourself. I hear your hacking cough in the dining room, followed by a gurgle in your throat. This comes and goes. I suppose it's part of dying. The hospice nurse gave me an eye drop to dry out the fluids that accumulate in your eyes. Atropine, I think. Tomorrow is the 4th. Like every holiday this year, this one is an occasion of crisis. People are bringing flowers, lots of flowers. Bob, my son's father, is over, and now he's talking to Reese, or rather, letting Reese talk. I guess Reese needed this. Words are just pouring out. Not about what's going on, but just talking. How do I feel? When I got back from the store today, I realized I had the option to come home to you, to sit by you, to talk by you, to stroke you. I told Rosa that you are so reduced, and yet to me the treasure of what we share is a human infinitude. The day before and the day after will be unlike days. I know this is true, and yet the thought causes a sudden surge of incomprehension. My state of unknowing is taking over. It's swallowing the passing moments. This is how I feel. I'm not porous enough, big enough, small enough to fit through the whole of the next hour. And yet I will. I'm on a roller crasher. I know the hardest part is coming, the deep churn of your endless absence. The strange thing is that you will still be here. Last night when I laid down the camp mattresses in the dining room, one on either side of you for Reese and me, I noticed the duct tape patch you'd put over a leak. You bought these mattresses and the sleeping bags. I prepared our beds with a feeling of household authority, but these are your things. They entered our house through your agency. You are in the structure of my life. I am wearing the blue-green glass earrings that you gave me. They were some of your favorites. When Nais came over to sit with you today, she noticed them. Ah, the earrings she gave you. Nais scurried in and perched next to your bed. She hunched over it as if roughly bent by the power of her feeling. Then she began whispering to you. She is so wounded by her deep love, I can almost see a knife thrust between her shoulder blades. I've been so battered by this thing, this illness and catastrophe. I've been in grief for months. I'm weather-beaten with it. Looking at Nais, I see for her it has arrived. I haven't written down the most dear and extraordinary thing. You can barely move. You've been unable to use your limbs. As we were lying together, you groaned. Concerned, I turned towards you, and you gazed at me and seemed to smile. Then you touched your lips with your finger, and then my lips with your finger, a kiss. My dear silent love, soon extinguished. Thank you.
And finally, Xochiquetzal Candelaria is the author of Empire from University of Arizona Press. Her work has appeared in The Nation, Colorado Review, Tin House, Huizache, Chicago Quarterly Review, and other magazines. She holds degrees from UC Berkeley and New York University and is the recipient of awards including an NEA Fellowship in Poetry and grants from the Barbara Deming Memorial Fund and the LEF Foundation. Her writing has been anthologized, most recently in Other Music's New Latina Poetry, The Poetry of Capital, and The Awesome Difficult Work of Love, June Jordan's Legacy. She teaches writing at City College of San Francisco. Xochi.
Let's bring that down for
Oh, do you need to bring it down?
you. A little bit, just a little bit.
Bring it down. Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Keep it under control.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you all for coming out. It really means a lot. I'm seeing so many familiar faces and writers, and it's very beautiful. Okay, so I'm just going to read some poems, and then we can chat and visit, and you guys can maybe buy your Christmas gifts for friends and whatnot. So thank you again. This one's called The Rains. Behind my aunt's house on an adobe wall, someone scrawled, "We'll die as we should have loved, giving all of our warmth." And then the rains came, and what remained was loved warmth. And eventually my aunt gave all the little cousins galoshes and nets to catch frogs in the abandoned swimming pool out back. 12 sacks of grain bloated, tar paper floated away. My father's family held title to the surrounding land, held it for 7 generations before they were forced to sell, helping me with a down payment on a 100-year-old house. Tearing into plaster and lath, I find newspaper clippings from the 1930s, one line reading, "It rained all morning." Through the night, through strips of white flags, I write, hoping my son might find it someday, grafted to the pages of a story where there's an abandoned 3-story brownstone into which a boy, Buddy, brings his Angela. Some of each floor is gone, revealing the house's spine, a spiral staircase. The only room with all of its walls is a bright orange washroom. I recall how my water broke in hours, mere leaning against a half-tiled shower. I heard the gush and thought someone had turned on the faucet. But because it was coming from me, but not by me, it seemed like applause. This boy orchestrating his way out, pushing along muscles, sloughing off blood and fluid, tensing, shaking my spine, breaking fine threads of tissue, arriving like dying, and unlike death, arriving warm, gumming the air. Minuscule bumps along the ridge of his nose, as if made of bubbles that rise to the surface. I'm in there somewhere, past the follicles, surviving, the cellular story goes. And the baby seems to know this. No, he seems to say. I can't promise you passage, just a chance to move in and out of the way as we get up and get on and fall back down again. He teaches me an untamed language, the way a swallow swoops down from a speckled branch to land near fresh drops of blood pulled beneath my lip after tripping one August morning. Was the back porch on 20th painted or raw? How old was I when the rains came and washed my blood away? If I studied closely, index finger moving delicately toward each fading red tendril, I am but 2 years. The beauty of mineral swirls brilliant to those with little time who warble as they wonder. But this isn't San Jose in the 1970s or Albuquerque on a small scratch of land my uncle still farms between golf courses and housing tracts. This is my bird call to fresh nerve, the curve of eyes, tiny hands pulling on levers to watch for change, to morning rain, how when it pauses, it can make my sister enter our house to lift the boy to her chest, balancing his heft on her hip as they slip out the back to pick poppies and watch for bees. Here's to the buzzing of all that love, an earthen wall. And if language can do the impossible, if it can promise flight, I repeat, through the night, through strips of white flags. So, no, please wait. Please wait. I'll just read just 2 or 3 more. This book is really has a lot to do with being a mother in these times. And so I promised Sonia that I would read something. She's 9 now. She really loves this. She loves this poem called, where is it? California Fires. I'm not finding it. Just give me a second. There it is. California Fires. California Fires. Like the pigments Caravaggio used in 1591 when painting The Sacrifice of Isaac. The old father's hand pressing Isaac's neck to the ground, the gunmetal gray knife, the boy's slender, contorted shoulder, an angel gripping Abraham's wrist to let him know God is pleased, that the boy doesn't have to be butchered. The ram looking up, take me instead. Fires burning all around, but out of frame, the haze that highlights the old man's wrinkled forehead and Isaac's open mouth is everywhere. Flames disappearing, whole orchards, houses, twisting iron. Do we hold out hope like Abraham that someone will save us from ourselves? Combustion consumes valleys, smoke billows plumes, and the sky blooms golden. On the hill, 1 cypress and 1 pine are dying of thirst. I have avoided having dogs up until this point because I was afraid of caring for something that couldn't talk back, couldn't say, you understand nothing. I have a dog now, and anyway, I do understand nothing. Okay, so I'm going to just read 2 more poems, and this one's called The New Language. One of us hears from her last week at a crisis prevention meeting. One of us hears her speaking in Ainu. It isn't Ainu, we decide, because it is also dying or dead by some reports. It might be pieces of many languages strung together with a syntax more vast than anything we can destroy, a language of witness, wetness. It is time to call a meeting that isn't called. Once we call it, it turns into another crisis prevention meeting, and our lungs hurt as the metal taste returns, piercing molars, keeping us arrested. We need to move. Fright freezes us to the spot, makes us swallow more fillers, churns the stomach, causes brains to beep incessantly. We know the others have it wrong when they confuse panic with desire. Sometimes, if we are quiet, we hear the fear evaporating. It sounds like tiny bells sighing in succession, and our bodies grow agile again. One of us is born yesterday. We labor for 20 hours, find that if we grab the doorframe and squat, her little head makes it over the hump and into the final passage. We suck on ice, don't taste the copper for now. We open, and the others are open too, like sleeping dogs. The new one of us blinks and stares, flexes her little starfish hands. The new language is a yawn, a smile. It moves through us like a wave. We know we are not speaking the new language. We know we are still dying. But she is singing to us in the new language while many of us press against her soft, soft back. And I'm going to end with the title poem, Show Me the Bells. And because of my name, Xochiquetzal is the goddess of springtime in the Aztec pantheon. And so I envisioned having a conversation with Huitzilopochtli, which is the god of war, right? Because of the current situation. And so it's anyway, show me the bells. Toward the end, opayata mushrooms imported from outside Osursk, a closed city surrounded by weapons-grade plutonium. A table in Osaka covered in sand and dirt, embossed with tiny paw prints. Dripping fungi hanging from forks, Huitzilopochtli says, "Don't be so hard on yourself, Xochiquetzal. After all, dahlias and marigolds were never enough." But because I was gifted my name along with my body by a lupe who, like millions of others, bore down delivering, and because most strategies of escape are an attempt at grace, I know he's mistaken. It's not, "If I had more, I would," I whisper to myself. It's the way water looks like marble. The way we want to hold for the sake of it, arms around a pillow, the way the seed pretends to be dung so a beetle will roll it underground. We have always been action and not end, always flowering and not flower, I whisper, I whisper. Falling forward out of the shower, my little girl twists a hand towel and begins hunting. She finds a cluster around my lower back. She shimmies the cloth back and forth to dry me off. This is not like a lover caressing or a masseuse preparing. This is, I am what I have always been, an earth working night and day, transmuting calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, magnesium, iron, zinc into breath, heartbeat, balance, and tension, shit and more shit. She especially delights in lifting each heavy breaths to find droplets like little patches of mushroom caps after a heavy rain. "Wait, Mama," she says, "there's still more." And somewhere near the center of the Xochiquetzal River in the lightest rain, I lift my arms and they rise like balloons. I am loose after losing so many, all my teachers, and I am revised as everything in me seems to be rising. The command, "Show me the bells," blooming, my budding cells answering back, "Ocotillo, palo verde, elephant tree." Thank you. So now, hopefully, can we turn the lights on, Eric? And see all the beautiful faces? So, I think at this point we just wanted to invite people to buy books, talk to the authors, support Eric, support each other, whatever you feel like doing. Maybe we can throw on some music. Unless people really feel moved to ask a question to the large group, you're welcome to. But I'm always a little funny about question and answer periods. Generally, it always feels. But otherwise, we can just open it up to people visiting with the authors individually.
I forgot to bring books, but that's my website.
Oh.
Camilleroy.me.
All right. Well, any questions for the large group? All right. Well, go ahead.